Today, we visit with the Command Chief Master Sergeant of Space Command. We take you inside the Optics and Laser Lab at the Air Force Academy. We visit the slopes for Snowfest at Keystone Resort. And we spotlight a Space Command civilian chasing her dreams on Air Force Space Today with your host, Krista Knaus.
Welcome to a special edition from Colorado Springs, Colorado. We're here at Peterson Air Force Base, headquarters of Air Force Space Command, guardians of the high frontier. Also, the home base of the commander of Air Force Space Command. General Lance Lord believes our Air Force Space today is critical to support all military operations. As part of a tour with several bases, he arrived in Japan to meet with 5th Air Force Commander Lieutenant General Bruce Wright. General Lord speaks about the mission and role of space-based operations and how they impact the daily lives of airmen stationed around the world.
For many people, space is kind of transparent. You don't see the satellites flying over, and you don't see the day-to-day kind of impacts like you would see aircraft on the flight line or people in that business. And so it's really easy to take space for granted because just about everything we do economically, militarily is connected to space. Communications, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, missile warning, and perhaps more importantly too, equal to that is the global positioning system with position, navigation, and timing kinds of capabilities. So everything we do is affected in some way with space, and we want to make sure that what we're doing day-to-day operationally with our space systems supports the real needs of General Wright and his team here in Japan.
General Lord went on to explain how important support from Air Force Space Command is to the working relationship between the Japan Air Self-Defense Force and the United States Air Force. Following a distinguished 37-year career, General Lord will retire from the United States Air Force April 1st. General Lord is currently the longest-serving Air Force 4-star general officer on active duty. He began his career in the missile and space arena during the Johnson administration. Throughout his tenure as commander of Air Force Space Command, General Lord led endeavors to expand on the command's support to the warfighter, increase space situation awareness, as well as educate the public on the importance of space. His influence will carry on for years to come.
It's been an honor to serve with him and for him. He's very dedicated to all our airmen, whether you're civilian, enlisted, or officer. And like I say, he has taken his command to the next level, and he will always be part of our Space Command family.
General Lord's successor has not yet been named. The Titan IV is the largest unmanned space booster in the U.S. inventory. It carries payloads equivalent to the size and weight of those lifted by the space shuttle. Launching the final Titan IV rocket is a culmination of tremendous effort from several organizations throughout Air Force Space Command. Let's take a look as Air Force Space Today closes this chapter of space history.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
The majestic and powerful Titan IVB rocket blasts off into space and history as its final launch is directed and supported by the people of the 2nd Space Launch Squadron and the 30th Space Wing at Vandenberg Air Force Base, California. This launch brings to a close Titan's proud 5-decade-old history of achievements dating back to its introduction in 1959. The Titan was initially designed as a 2-stage intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, and as a backup in case the Atlas, another rocket in the ICBM inventory, was delayed. The Titan served as an integral component in our nation's nuclear deterrent during the height of the Cold War.
Because of its public visibility, I believe that Titan will forever be known as an important part of our nuclear deterrent arsenal. However, I believe that its legacy will be its long and successful record of launching our most significant military and national intelligence satellites.
It also attained an admirable place in the space program, launching astronauts in both Gemini and Apollo missions, with such notables as Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins making their first space flights in Titan rockets. Titan also participated in the Viking and Voyager programs, launching the Cassini spacecraft that now orbits Saturn with its probe, Huygens, conducting the most distant landing on another world. Over the years, from its initial use as an ICBM, the Titan evolved into a heavy-lift workhorse, launching defense, commercial, and scientific payloads from Earth orbits and beyond, with the Air Force using it as a replacement to the Space Shuttle after the Challenger disaster in 1986.
The Titan 34D program was authorized and grew into the 39-vehicle program that recently ended with the launch of the B-26 from Vandenberg.
The Titan 4B model and upgrade is the result of follow-on procurement of the previous space-lift vehicle, incorporating advanced technology plus state-of-the-art guidance and electronics with a new ground processing system. For its final mission, the 16-story Titan 4B carries a top-secret spy satellite for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. In less than 10 minutes after liftoff, the Lockheed Martin-built space launch vehicle completes its mission by deploying the classified payload. The Space and Missile Systems Center's former Launch Systems Program Office records the notable legacy of Titan's final launch. Replacement for the Titan 4B and its vital role in launching and deploying heavier satellites will be achieved by the less expensive and more modular Atlas V and Delta IV rocket families of the Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicle program, fulfilling the U.S. Air Force's heavy lift needs for the foreseeable future.
As we continue this special edition from our Air Force Space Command bases in Colorado, we give you a look at the new mission statement for the Air Force. The statement includes two new concepts: sovereign options and cyberspace.
Hi, I'm Chief Master Sergeant Ron Creta, the Command Chief for Air Force Space Command, and you're watching Air Force Space Today, the only Air Force program telling the space story. Thanks for watching.
The Air Force Academy here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, helps mold the minds of future Air Force leaders. But the Academy is also shaping the future of Air Force space technology. Tech Sergeant Steve German takes us inside the Optics and Laser Lab.
Air Force cadets are participating in cutting-edge research. One of the latest research projects is focused on making Air Force space assets lighter and cheaper.
Something about the weight of a can of Coke, it's going to cost you about $25,000. So any time you can lighten the load, you've got some significant savings in cost.
Dr. Jeff Anderson says this research and technology aims to improve future surveillance satellites.
We're trying to develop the next generation of Air Force telescopes. So how do you make a telescope bigger? You have to make it lighter, and you have to make something that's collapsible. We've got one thing called a photon sieve. It's basically a flat sheet which is full of millions of tiny little holes. Now with those holes positioned in exactly the right place, it can take starlight or light from your object and focus it down to a nice image.
And it's cadets like Drew Tolson who are important in performing research while furthering their careers.
I think this research is very exciting because it allows an opportunity to see what the Air Force will be using in perhaps 15 years in the future, and to actually see how these things are working.
Air Force Academy cadets conducting this research have a chance to see and affect the future of Air Force technology that they could see later in their Air Force careers. Tech Sergeant Steve German, Air Force Academy, Colorado Springs, Colorado.
The Air Force pioneer, widely considered as the father of the intercontinental ballistic missile program, died at the age of 91. Colonel Edward Hall helped develop solid fuel rocket technology used in most other U.S. missiles and the boosters on the space shuttle, putting the U.S. decades ahead of other superpowers. Thanks to Colonel Hall's immense knowledge of rocket propellants, the Air Force created its first solid fuel ICBM in the late 1950s. His work helped switch America's missiles from liquid fuel to solid fuel, making them smaller, less expensive, and ready for launch at a moment's notice. The Minuteman is the core of America's missile defense system. The men and women of Air Force security forces provide resource protection for vital national security. Los Angeles Air Force Base security forces and deploying military members qualify, train, and prepare for their deployment by creating realistic scenarios for wartime environments.
Historically, small arms training has been on a live fire range. This is actually better for us because it's more cost efficient and people have more of a chance to become proficient on the weapons. The FAT system consists of weapons that have been modified to shoot at a screen. They have CO2 canisters to give them the actual recoil. The screen, which registers the weapon's hits, and it also consists of the computer, which the trainer can run the scenarios from. The FAT system has three parts to it: the computer graphic imagery, which is where the military scenarios can be run; the digital video, which is where law enforcement interact with live video; and the range training, which is a simulated live fire range. The personnel at this base that will use our FAT system will first and foremost be the security forces, and then we'll also have the DoD members of our security forces guard. The deployers is a big one for us. Most of the stuff that we will worry about with deployers will be what they will actually run into when they go over there. Currently, the weapons that we use are M16s, M9 Berettas, and M870 shotguns. We are trying to purchase M4s, and there are also tons of other weapons that you can use with the system. It does not take long for trainees to come in and be able to shoot on this system. All they need to know how to do is to pick up the gun and shoot. The benefits of the system: people can become more proficient on the weapon, they become more comfortable with it. We don't have to worry about the weather outside, or if there's ranges open, we can come in here and qualify 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Thule Air Base is a patch of civilization in an unforgiving land. The base sits on a small bay on Greenland's northwest coast, about 700 miles above the Arctic Circle. So far north, in fact, you have to look south to view the northern lights.
Thule is an isolated settlement on the edge of the world's second largest ice cap. The closest town is a helicopter ride away. It's the kind of base where you know everyone's name, and the base commander welcomes you personally. Less than 300 airmen and a few hundred contractors are stationed at Thule, but that small group of people impact the entire Air Force every day. American airmen have lived and worked in these extreme conditions for more than half a century, standing watch over North America. Originally, Thule was home to fighters ready to intercept Soviet bombers before they could reach Canada or the U.S. Then intercontinental ballistic missiles moved nuclear weapons out of the fighters' reach to where Thule's value lies today: in space.
The site was originally stood up in the 60s when the Cold War was not so cold, to detect and get the earliest warning of any inbound missiles over the pole. You want to go as high up as you can, if you will. Thule was seen as an ideal spot.
Lieutenant Colonel Scott Peel commands the 12th Space Warning Squadron. They watch the space above the North Pole looking for intercontinental ballistic missiles, a nuclear war. Just like the war, Tech Sergeant Nathan Wells is starting now.
In just a second, they'll get a missile launched, and they'll have to react to that.
Tech Sergeant Wells runs a simulator at Thule Space Warning Squadron. His job is to wreak havoc, and he likes his job.
Their average 2 hours in here will probably equal, they'll give them the same thing that they may have in a month.
26957?
Next door in operations, this crew is watching for the real thing. From this room, they can see everything that goes over the North Pole. They use 2 giant radar arrays to probe the skies. The signal is so strong we could only take still photos. They fried our video cameras. These arrays look thousands of miles above the Earth. They can track a hunk of metal the size of a softball. And there's a lot of objects out there.
Skies above Thule are among the busiest in the world. But I'm not talking about airplanes. It's full of satellites. The American military alone has more than 170 satellites in a polar orbit around the Earth. Every satellite that orbits the poles passes right by this spot.
Thule Space Warning Squadron's primary concern is missiles, but they track and catalog all objects in space. The information they gather helps build a complete picture of everything orbiting the Earth.
You know, space is a busy place. In any battlefield, your warfighter wants to know what is going on in their space. Unfortunately, unlike a battlefield, we don't have eyes on all of our objects in space.
Instead, they track them over the poles. Thule and other tracking stations collect data used to calculate an object's entire orbit and figure out if it threatens an American satellite or even the space shuttle. The data they gather today will help determine if a piece of space junk will threaten one of our satellites tomorrow or next month.
It's very easy for you know, a formation of aircraft flying around to see a threat coming their way and take some type of maneuverability to get out of the way, some type of action, evasive action. Our satellite systems don't work that way. Most of the time, more or less, they're on autopilot. They're just using physics, the laws of physics, to stay in the orbit that they're in. By us looking at all the space debris out there, we can catalog that and we can figure out when objects may or may not collide and when they pose a threat to our satellite systems.
And if we ever had to move one of our satellites, the command would pass through another unit at Thule, Detachment 3 Space Operations Squadron, affectionately called POGO. The airmen and civilians at POGO are the link to American satellites circling the poles. Det 3 Commander Major Daryl Terrell says once again, Thule's value is location.
We're in a unique spot such that we can actually, well, we pretty much handle all the polar orbits. Okay, when a satellite normally rotates around the Earth, you know, there's two spots where it'll always hit: the North Pole and the South Pole. Okay, and because of treaty reasons, obviously nobody's down on the South Pole, but the North Pole allows us to give real-time data back to users.
These giant domes shelter huge satellite dishes from Greenland's harsh elements. As one of our satellites approaches Thule, the dish will point towards the horizon, waiting. When the satellite comes into view, the dish locks on and follows it across the sky, and the information begins to flow.
You know, of course, we're in contact with up to 170 different DoD assets. Okay, now all different types of capabilities. You got your global positioning satellite system, you have your defense satellite communication system, you have your MILSTAR, which offers your secure comm, and you have your defense meteorological satellites as well.
To get an idea of POGO's impact, let's look at a single sortie. First, pilots need the weather forecast to plan their flight, intel on where the bad guys are hiding. In the air, they'll use GPS to navigate, and satellite communications. All that information comes from satellites, and those satellites pass through information through Det 3. Thule touches millions of lives every day. The weather forecast, GPS navigation in planes, and even our cars, communications and intel. And America lives under Thule's protective watch. All that thanks to this isolated base at the top of the world.
When someone chases a dream, it can be an inspiration to all those around them. A prime example of this is Felicia Brown, a hardworking Space Command employee pursuing her lifelong dream of becoming a professional golfer. And although the links here at Peterson Air Force Base aren't open year-round, back in Los Angeles, you'll find Felicia on the course every day.
Many people at Los Angeles Air Force Base enjoy the game of golf. But for one employee, golf is much more than a pastime. It's a way of life. A true passion for Miss Felicia Brown. Felicia works as a contract specialist on the GPS Block 2F satellite. She manages input from technical specialists and the contractor, Boeing, handling pricing requirements and placing them on contract for the government's approval.
My office is responsible for keeping the satellites in orbit. If contracting was not there, there would be no satellites. You would have no GPS, you could not make any phone calls, you could not fly planes. So I am crucial to the system.
And although she does take her job very seriously, make no mistake about it, Felicia's #1 priority is golf.
Yes. Work is what I do in between golf. Pays the bills.
Felicia plays nearly every day, hitting the golf course before and after work. On Saturdays, she plays 18 to 27 holes. In fact, The only day she doesn't play is Sunday, unless, of course, there's a tournament. Then she plays on Sundays as well. Now, you might think all that devotion to golf would interfere with her work. However, she gets nothing but praise from her bosses and co-workers. In fact, they appreciate her efforts so much that Felicia Brown was a mid-level Civilian of the Year nominee for Los Angeles Air Force Base.
She is such a pleasure to work with. She comes to the office with such enthusiasm and desire to learn and desire to contribute. She's always asking questions, wanting to learn more, and what I really appreciate about her is that she likes to think outside the box.
Felicia started playing golf at the tender age of 7, following her father around the golf course. An apt student, her dad soon took her to a professional instructor. By the age of 9, she had already played in her first tournament. Felicia recently got picked up for the Golf Channel's reality show, The Big Break 3, Ladies Only. And although she didn't win, Felicia feels she did quite well, as the only amateur golfer competing against 9 other professional women.
I think I lived an entire lifetime. In the time that I was there, I'd done all kind of things that I've never ever done before that I don't think I would have done if I hadn't gone to the Golf Channel. So it was a great experience.
Felicia's dream is to eventually become a professional golfer. Based on her attitude and determination, the fulfillment of that dream may be just right around the corner.
I'm pursuing this dream a lot later in life than a lot of people that play golf do. So I represent the underdog, and I represent never give up.
Hi, we're at beautiful Keystone Resort, Colorado, site of Snowfest, where Air Force Space Command troops and their family members are finishing up a beautiful day on the slopes.
We're stationed at Schriever Air Force Base, 1 SOPS, 1st Space Operations Squadron, and we're here to just enjoy the Snowfest.
Well, we came here to share the weekend with our friends and have a good time skiing.
It's great to come up here and just have some fun and relax and really see our airmen up here and our soldiers and Marines up here also having some fun. It's terrible duty, but somebody's got to do it.
It's a great opportunity just for everybody in the squadron to participate. From the airmen to the officers, everybody gets a chance to get out and have fun.
You know, it's a wonderful opportunity when people PCS to all the different front range bases, because you know how small Space Command is. They could be going to Buckley and still have friends at Schriever, and we're all part of Space Command. We have even people come from Maelstrom all the way up here to ski at Keystone, and it's a wonderful way to, you know, keep in contact with old friends in Space Command.
I mean, you get a chance to go out and see people in a different venue than you normally do. So it's great to build that teamwork and esprit de corps.
All right, I had to get one more run in on the slopes, but that'll do it for our special edition of Air Force Space Today from Space Command bases around Colorado. We'll see you next time.